Most people die twice. The first time is when their body stops. The second time, and this is the one that should terrify you, is the moment they stop becoming. The moment they look at the life in front of them and decide, quietly, without announcement, that this is as far as they go, that the person they are today is the person they will be forever. No more stretching, no more reaching, no more frightening, exhilarating, soul-expanding growth. Just maintenance, just survival, just the long, slow management of a life that was never fully lived. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this happening everywhere around him. In the streets, in the churches, in the universities, in the faces of people who had traded their fire for safety and were now walking through their days like ghosts who had forgotten they were supposed to be alive. And it enraged him, not with contempt, with grief, because he could see what they were. He could see the magnitude of what they were throwing away. He could see the extraordinary human being buried beneath the ordinary life, and it broke something in him that they could not see it in themselves. He spent his entire life, every essay, every book, every fever-bright page he ever wrote, trying to shake humanity awake, trying to hand people a mirror so honest it was almost violent, trying to say to anyone who would listen, "You are more than this. You have always been more than this. And the only thing standing between you and the version of yourself that would make your current self unrecognizable is the one thing you have been most carefully, most skillfully, most devotedly avoiding. Yourself, the real one, the one underneath the performance, the one underneath the fear, the one underneath all the careful, practiced smallness you have constructed to keep yourself safe from the terrifying possibility of your own greatness. Today, we are going to dismantle that smallness piece by piece. We are going to walk directly into the center of Nietzsche's most electrifying idea, and we are not going to flinch, because the person you are afraid to be is not a stranger. They are the most familiar person in the universe. They are the you that existed before the world told you who to be, before the fear settled in, before you learned to make yourself digestible for people who were uncomfortable with your full size. That person has been waiting, patient and certain and completely unimpressed by every excuse you have ever made. And today they are done waiting. Let us begin. There is a sentence Nietzsche wrote that has the power to completely reorganize a human life if you let it land the way it was meant to. He wrote, "Become who you are." 3 words. Deceptively simple, cosmically demanding. Because buried inside those 3 words is a recognition that most philosophy never dares to make. The recognition that you are not yet who you are, that the person you call yourself, the identity you carry, the character you perform for the world every single day, is not the finished thing. It is not even close to the finished thing. It is a rough sketch, a draft, a beginning that has been mistaken for a conclusion. Who you are is not what you have been. Who you are is what you are capable of becoming when you stop letting fear make your decisions. And here is where Nietzsche becomes dangerous in the best possible way. He did not believe that becoming was optional. He did not treat self-creation as a hobby for people with extra time and favorable circumstances. He believed it was the fundamental obligation of a human life, that to refuse your own becoming was not just a personal tragedy, but a kind of cosmic waste, a betrayal of the force that made you. Think about what that means for your life right now. Think about the thing you know you should be doing but are not doing, the conversation you know you should be having but are avoiding, the version of yourself you can feel pulling at you from the future, urgent and certain, while you stand here in the present, making peace with who you are not. That pull is not fantasy. That pull is information. That pull is the most honest thing about you, more honest than your fears, more honest than your doubts, more honest than every voice that has ever told you to be realistic, to be careful, to be reasonable. That pull is who you actually are, reaching back through time to get your attention. The question is whether you are going to listen. Now, let us talk about fear. Because fear is the central character in this story, whether we like it or not. Nietzsche did not tell you to eliminate fear. He was not naive enough to suggest that the path to your highest self was paved with comfort and certainty. What he said was something far more demanding and far more useful. He said that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important. It is the willingness to move forward while the fear is still screaming. It is the recognition that fear, in its most honest form, is just a compass pointing directly at the thing that matters most. Think about every single thing in your life that you are afraid of becoming. Afraid of being too ambitious and failing publicly. Afraid of being too honest and losing relationships. Afraid of being too creative and being called delusional. Afraid of being too powerful and making people around you uncomfortable. Afraid of wanting more than what you have been told is appropriate for someone like you. Every single one of those fears is a map. Every single one is pointing at the exact location where your growth is waiting for you. The thing you are most afraid to become is almost always the thing you most need to become. Not because suffering is noble, but because the fear is proportional to the significance. The things that scare you most are the things that would change you most. And the things that would change you most are precisely the things that need to happen. Nietzsche called this the will to power, and almost everyone misunderstands it. They hear the word power and they think dominance. They think control over others. They think the accumulation of wealth or status or influence. But that is not what he meant. Not even close. The will to power is the drive towards self-mastery. It is the force inside you that refuses to accept your current limitations as permanent. It is the relentless, almost violent insistence on growth, on becoming, on the expansion of your own capacity to experience, to create, to love, to suffer fully, and rise anyway. The will to power is not about conquering the world. It is about conquering the version of you that is afraid of the world. It is about becoming so fully yourself that there is no room left for pretending, performing, or shrinking. And here is the hard part. Here is the part that nobody wants to say out loud. The person you are afraid to be is not just a better version of you. In many ways, they are a completely different person. They make different decisions. They have different boundaries. They want different things. They tolerate different things. They refuse things that you currently accept. They pursue things that you currently only dream about. And the transition from who you are to who you are afraid to be is not a gentle upgrade. It is a transformation. Real, disorienting, sometimes lonely transformation. Because when you begin to become who you truly are, not everyone around you is going to celebrate it. Some people have been deeply invested in your smallness. Your predictability has been convenient for them. Your willingness to shrink yourself has made them comfortable. And when you start expanding, when you start taking up the space you were always supposed to occupy, some of those people are going to feel threatened by it. Nietzsche understood this intimately. He wrote that the higher man must expect to be misunderstood, must expect to be ahead of the crowd in ways that feel isolating, must expect that the journey of genuine self-creation is not a team sport in the early stages. It is a solo expedition into territory that most people will never visit. And it requires a particular kind of courage that has nothing to do with physical bravery. It requires the courage to be alone with your own becoming. The courage to trust your own vision even when nobody else can see what you see yet. That kind of courage is rare, but you already have it. The fact that you are here, the fact that these ideas are landing for you, the fact that something in you recognized this conversation before it even began. That is evidence. That is proof. That is the signal you have been waiting for. Right now, in this moment, I want to speak directly to you. Not to the version of you that is performing, not to the version that is watching this for inspiration, to the real one, the one underneath all of it. You already know who you are afraid to be. You have known for a long time. You have felt it in the quiet moments, in the gap between who you are and who you feel you could be, in the ache of unrealized potential that sometimes hits you so hard it takes your breath away. You know, you have always known. And if this channel has been giving you the ideas, the fire, the philosophical ammunition to start closing that gap, then this is the moment to make sure you never lose access to it. Subscribe right now. Hit that button and join a community of people who are done being spectators in their own lives. Every single week, we go deeper. Every single week, we bring you the thinking that transforms not just how you see the world, but how you see yourself. The greatest minds in history left us their blueprints. This channel is dedicated to making sure you have every single one of them. Subscribe now, because the conversation we are having today is just one thread in a much larger tapestry, and you do not want to miss what comes next. Now let us go deeper, because we have not yet talked about the most terrifying aspect of becoming who you are afraid to be, and that is the death of who you currently are. Transformation is not addition. It is not simply bolting new qualities onto the existing structure of your identity. Real transformation, the Nietzschean kind, requires the death of the old self, the shedding of the skin you have been living in, the willingness to look at patterns, beliefs, habits, and relationships that have defined you and to say, these are not mine anymore. These belong to the person I was. They do not belong to the person I am becoming. This is terrifying because identity, even a limiting identity, feels like safety. You know who you are when you are small. You know what to expect. You know what people expect from you. There is a strange comfort in the predictability of a life lived below your potential. It requires no bravery. It produces no genuine aliveness. But it is familiar. And familiarity can feel like home even when it is actually a prison. Nietzsche wrote about the death of God, not as a theological statement, but as a psychological one. He was talking about the collapse of external authority. The moment a person stops outsourcing their values, their direction, their sense of worth to something outside themselves, and begins, for the first time, to generate those things from within. He called this moment both devastating and liberating. Devastating because it removes the comfort of external validation. Liberating because it hands you something infinitely more valuable. Sovereignty, complete, terrifying, magnificent sovereignty over your own existence. When you become who you are afraid to be, you stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for validation. You stop calibrating your choices based on what the crowd will accept. You become the author of your own values, the architect of your own direction, the final authority on your own life, and that is the most powerful thing a human being can become. But let us be honest about what that costs, because Nietzsche was always honest about what things cost. Sovereignty is not free. It costs you the comfort of being understood. It costs you the ease of fitting in. It costs you the approval of people who were only comfortable with you when you were smaller. It costs you the luxury of blaming others for your circumstances, because once you accept full authorship of your life, you also accept full responsibility for it. Most people are not willing to pay that price, and so they live their entire lives as passengers in their own story, wondering why the journey feels so hollow. Why the destinations never satisfy, why the success they have achieved feels like someone else's definition of success rather than their own. You are not most people. If you were, you would not still be watching this. Let us talk now about what it actually looks like to begin. Because philosophy without application is just beautiful noise, and Nietzsche, for all his fire, was ultimately interested in transformation, not just illumination. The first step to becoming who you are afraid to be is radical honesty. Not the social kind. Not the kind where you tell people what you think when they ask and carefully manage the delivery. The brutal, private kind. The kind where you sit alone with yourself and ask questions that you have been too comfortable to ask. What do I actually want, separate from what I have been told I should want? What kind of person do I actually admire, not the kind I perform admiring in public? Where in my life am I pretending? Where am I making peace with things I should be refusing? Where is the gap between who I present to the world and who I actually am? Those questions are uncomfortable. They are supposed to be. The discomfort is the point. The discomfort is the friction of reality pressing against the fiction you have been maintaining. And that friction is the first sign that something real is beginning to happen. The second step is the deliberate decision to act from the future version of yourself rather than the present one. This is a Nietzschean move of extraordinary power. Instead of asking, "What would I normally do?" you begin asking, "What would the person I am becoming do?" And then you do that, even when it feels false, even when it feels presumptuous, even when the gap between who you are and who you are acting as feels enormous, because the gap closes through action, not through waiting. You do not become brave by thinking about bravery. You become brave by doing the brave thing while you are still afraid. The third step is to stop editing yourself for audiences that do not deserve the real version of you. This is perhaps the most practically transformative thing you can do. Begin, in small ways, to say what you actually think, to want what you actually want, to pursue what actually calls to you rather than what is socially sanctioned, not recklessly, not without wisdom, but authentically. Consistently, with the growing conviction that your real self, the unedited, unperformed, uncompromising real self, is not just acceptable, it is extraordinary. Because it is. Because the version of you that has been buried under years of careful management and strategic smallness is not less than the performed version. It is vastly more. It is richer, stranger, more powerful, more interesting, more capable of genuine connection, more capable of genuine achievement than anything the performance ever produced. The performed self can achieve impressive things, but the real self can achieve meaningful things. And at the end of a life, impressive things are footnotes. Meaningful things are the whole story. Nietzsche wrote near the end of his productive life, "I know my fate. One day my name will be associated with the memory of something tremendous." He wrote this in relative obscurity. He wrote this when almost nobody was reading him. He wrote this when the world had largely ignored or dismissed everything he had produced. And he wrote it not from arrogance, but from the unshakable conviction of a man who had done the work of becoming, who had paid every price that authenticity demanded, who had refused every comfortable compromise that would have made his life easier, but his work smaller. He was right. His name is now associated with something tremendous, not because he was born extraordinary, but because he refused, with every cell of his being, to become anything less than what he actually was. That refusal is available to you, right now, today, in the life you are actually living. Not a hypothetical future life with better circumstances and fewer obstacles. The obstacles are part of it. The difficult circumstances are part of it. The fear, the uncertainty, the moments of crushing doubt, all of it is part of the raw material from which the person you are afraid to be is constructed. You do not become who you are afraid to be in spite of the difficulty. You become who you are afraid to be through it, because of it. By meeting it fully, without flinching, without retreating into the comfortable story that you will become yourself later when things get easier. Things do not get easier before you become. You become and then things get easier. That is the sequence. That is the truth that Nietzsche understood, and that most people spend their entire lives getting backwards. So here is where we land. Here is the thing I want you to carry with you when this video ends and the ordinary world rushes back in. You are not who you have been. You are not the sum of your past decisions. You are not the ceiling that fear has constructed above you. You are not the limited, careful, managed version of yourself that you have been presenting to the world. Those things are real. They happened. But they are not the verdict. They are the beginning. The person you are afraid to be is not a fantasy. They are not a distant possibility contingent on circumstances improving or time passing or permission being granted. They are alive right now inside you with more certainty and more patience and more power than you have ever given them credit for. And all they need, all they have ever needed, is for you to choose them. To choose them over the comfort, over the approval, over the fear, over the convenient story that you are not yet ready, not yet enough, not yet in the right position to be who you actually are. You are ready. You were ready before you started watching this. You were ready before the fear convinced you otherwise. You were ready the moment you were born with the specific combination of gifts, wounds, hunger, and vision that makes you irreplaceably, unmistakably, magnificently you. Become who you are afraid to be. Not someday. Not when the conditions are right. Not when you feel more prepared or more certain or more seen. Now, today, in the next decision you make, in the next conversation you have, in the next moment you are tempted to make yourself smaller than you actually are. Choose the real version, every time, without apology. Because the world does not need another performance. It has enough of those. What it needs, what it has always needed, what only you can give it, is the full, unedited, uncompromising truth of who you actually are. Nietzsche spent his life asking humanity to rise to that challenge. Now it is your turn.